So, in case you don't listen to Monday Geek Nights, I guess we should say it again briefly, that this is Questions Week.
There's going to be no news. There's going to be no things of the day, which is good because I can save all these newses and things of the day for next week, and I'll have a surplus instead of a drought.
Yep, we're just going to jump right into this, partly because we have a lot of questions, and if last night was any indication, we're not going to get through them all.
Which is fine because that'll let us make an extra episode of questions later and save us some time. Also, I just want to say that these questions, we're not giving credit for any of the questions, most, for psychological reasons and for other reasons. You know what question you asked. So.
You don't want to hear us say, so-and-so from Idaho writes.
Yeah, that's just wasting our time and yours, and it'll also change the way we answer. If we know that a certain series of questions were all asked by the same person, that'll change the way we answer them. This way, it'll just be straight up the question with nothing outside of that fooling with our minds.
And also, I know a lot of you are Tuesday night only listeners, or you don't listen to Mondays. And this week only, I'd highly recommend that you check out all 4 nights because we've gotten a lot of feedback already from last night's show. And it seems to be that people really like this sort of thing, these question shows. And a lot of people really like that episode. And one particular listener even said that he's going to listen to Wednesday night, even though he hates anime.
Oh, wow.
Dams.
All right, so you want to just get to it?
All right. So, what are your least favorite trends in gaming today?
The least favorite trends in gaming, video gaming and board gaming and role-playing gaming?
Well, they said just gaming.
All right.
Well, very specifically, I can say one. The direction Dungeons & Dragons is going.
Yeah, that's not the greatest trend.
But I think that's really too narrow for this question.
Yeah, my least favorite trend in gaming would have to be the trend of there being games that are not games of... I guess I don't want to know, that's sort of bad, but...
Well, you didn't say anything.
Because what I was thinking I was going against. I was going to say that I don't like games that don't require skill. However, games like Apples to Apples and stuff like that are included in that, and I like those. I guess it's games that reward, that reward the wrong thing. Like, they reward how much time you spend, or they reward other things besides, getting, reflexes or thinking or strategy or... creativity. They're games that reward stupid things like spending more time or spending more money or things like that.
I guess I would just go with it. It's not really a new trend, but it's a trend that's been continued for a long time. A lot of games are released, they don't take risks, and there's very little risk taking going on in gaming. I mean, Nintendo took a gigantic risk with the Wii and the DS, but the PlayStation 3 shouldn't have been a risk, and the Xbox definitely wasn't a risk, and most games that come out, and they're just, we're going to make Halo 3. It'll sell no matter what. Luckily, Halo 3 seems to be pretty good, but Halo 3 could have been crap, and people would have bought it anyway, and they probably would have bought Halo 4.
Yep.
Oh, well, this is a more interesting part of that question, because it's the same question. Your most favorite.
Most favorite trend in gaming today?
I gotta say, I'm really happy with this. I mean, we did it way back, this analogy of FPSs, and back in the day were like Rome, and then, we have the Renaissance on the consoles, and what's going on in console FPSs and just gaming in general, especially with Xbox Live and these sorts of things, is I like how everything's getting integrated, kind of like what happened on the internet with Web 2.0, and just stat generation, and just like it or not, the way the achievements on the Xbox work, and just... There's a lot of multiplayer going on that wasn't happening outside of the PC world.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. My favorite trend is multiplayering everything, making everything out to be a competition between people, even if it's...
Or even a cooperation between people. Co-op gaming is something that kind of died, and it's starting to come back in a big way.
You think about the NES, most two-player games were like beat-em-ups like Contra or River City Ransom.
Or they were I play, then you play, and then I play, and then you play.
Yeah, there weren't too many verses other than Tetris, and Tetris on the NES wasn't even versus. I guess Yoshi's Cookie on the NES was versus. That's about it.
Dr. Mario.
No, that too.
Not a real doctor.
Nope. Don't let him touch your business. All right. What is the worst game mechanic?
All right, so I like how a lot of these questions, based on who did write the questions when I first looked at them, you can kind of tell, obviously they're talking about video games or board games or whatever. But, they said game mechanic, and I think in all of gaming, I think the absolute worst game mechanic is the grind.
I was going to agree. The grind is the worst.
I mean, even Final Fantasies, I ate that up as a kid, but leveling in Final Fantasy IV was just as much a grind as any MMO, and you can't pretend it was anything else.
I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, solve a puzzle, and then you displayed skill, and you increased your knowledge as a person, and therefore we're going to give you a reward that gives you more abilities. That's fine. But to World of Warcraft, there's no skill or testing your knowledge or abilities. It's just click. You just click, and the more times you click and the longer you click, it gets better.
Yeah, now remember, we're talking about just the grind, not the epic raids, not the the big deal things, but the grind. The fact that to do the big deal things, you still got to level up, and even the most hardcore WoW players will agree that there's a lot of grinding out, I got to cowboy a paladin for next week kind of deal.
Even just Final Fantasy Combat, you can't lose. If you're running out of resources, you go back to the inn and then you start again.
A Final Fantasy Combat can go one of three ways. I lose because I'm not high enough level or don't have the right items.
Yep.
I lose because I didn't figure out the trick to beating whatever this boss is.
And that's a boss. It's talking about random encounters in the field here.
Or, well, in that case, it's I didn't manage my resources properly and didn't bring enough healing potions.
You have to do such an epic failure of management, though, to actually die.
Hey, don't. In Final Fantasy IV, it was not hard to get yourself fucking trapped in the middle of nowhere with no way back.
Anyway, all right, let's.
Well, I want to go in different kinds of gaming because board games, I think the worst game mechanic is dice.
Yeah, I guess.
I just think that anytime a board game, especially in the modern era, uses dice, it's just a cop-out, and they could have done something interesting with it.
Well, I guess not all uses of dice themselves. I mean, Burning Wheel uses dice, but that's not really a board game. But Liar's Dice uses dice to great effect.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess they're the exception. I mean, Entdecker uses a die, and I think it uses it really well.
Yeah, it does.
Battlelore, I think, uses dice really poorly.
Battlelore does use dice really. I guess it's poor use of dice or heavy dependence on dice or dice being like the core of the game. I mean, you can use a 6-sided cube or a multi-sided cube as an item in your game that, does things.
I guess it's just that dice, it's not just that randomness is often a bad game mechanic or is often, if it's a good game mechanic, used poorly. I think it's just that dice are very unimaginative. And you could have done something cooler if you'd thought about it.
Yep. All right. What is the best game mechanic?
I know what Scott's going to say.
I'm going to, because I said it yesterday.
Yes, you did.
I think that my favorite game mechanic as of recent is the draft, which is sort of like play Ticket to Ride, right? Ticket to Ride is a draft. What you do is you have a deck of cards, and they draw like 5 cards from the deck and put them face up. And on your turn, you can either take like 1 face-up card or 2 face-down cards.
Yep,
So
Third in Taxis also does this. St. Petersburg does something similar that St. Petersburg, just that the whole mechanic of that game, the game's kind of broken in the sense that all games are broken and you eventually figure it out, but I feel like all the core mechanics of a game like St. Petersburg and this kind of round-robin drafting, giving up resources to get other resources, anticipating what other people are going to take, is just so elegant that I eat it up.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Instead of having dice, roll a die, Candyland, you just draw 1 card, which is effectively the same as dice, and do what it says. Here, you get to you have a decision to make. It's still random, but you're so much more in control. You can either choose to take a face up or take a calculated risk on, you could turn out better, it could turn out worse, or the status quo. It's up to you, and I think that's pretty cool.
And the randomness is mitigated by the fact that usually it's iterative, where you'll draft round robin style or by some other mechanism, and you'll do a whole bunch of drafts. And your decisions, you'll have to look at what other players are doing, what the board looks like. You'll have to anticipate a lot of things. It's not as... You can still add a lot of randomness to a game, but it's the good kind of randomness.
Yep.
It's the kind of randomness that prevents the Puerto Rico, wow, the 3-player game is broken situation.
All right.
All right, give me an example of a game that is style over substance. Myst.
That's a good one.
Myst, I mean... A lot of people like Myst, but I think a lot of people, I hate to use Scott's stupid like argument, I'm not gonna, but I think a lot of people, when Myst came out, felt like they had to like Myst or they'd be ostracized by the popularized gaming community.
I don't know if that's true.
I think that happened. I know a lot of people in my high school were like, yeah, Myst is awesome, and it was kind of that situation where that... Well, I guess it was middle school. God, that was a long time ago. Like when someone says they've seen a movie, but they haven't. Or they say they like the Terminator, but they don't know what the Terminator is. They're just trying to fit in. Because I think Myst was a terrible puzzle game.
Oh, Myst is, yeah, I'm not a big fan of Myst. I have a big rant about how Myst ruined gaming for quite a long time, and it's still, we're feeling the effects even now. But regardless of that, give an example of a game that is style over substance. So I guess I was trying to think of the ultimate game that is style over substance, and I was going to say something like Katamari, which while the substance of Katamari is good, the style is over it.
Well, I'll say the actual gameplay of Katamari on a core level
It's all right.
It's all right, but
all
it's
right.
not great, and it doesn't have much staying power.
No.
But just the way the game plays, and the music, and the feeling you get, and just all the art direction and everything together just make the game so much more than the game itself should have been.
And so my answer is going to be Luigi's Mansion.
General Beauregard.
Yeah. All right. Give an example of a game that is substance over style.
All right, I have the ultimate example, and that is going to be fucking Weapons Factory.
Oh, you're not going to say Bionic Commando?
I think Bionic Commando had a lot of style to it, too.
It did have some style, but it wasn't, the substance was clearly over the style.
It was, but a lot of NES games were like that just because graphics were limited. You couldn't do much.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but seriously, Weapons Factory, or all those super old mods for Quake 2, I think they were fantastic games. I think they were amazing. But at the same time, they looked like garbage. They were the graphics were barely beyond the original, Quake models, and they were just god awful to look at. They were terrible, but they were good games.
I'm going to say, it says just name one, so I will say Outlaw. Outlaw is high quality.
Outlaw is a really fun game.
Yeah.
Actually, I'd say Kaboom, but Kaboom I think has a lot of style.
Kaboom does have style.
All right, give an example of a game. God, these are all give an example questions.
I guess they were all by the same person, but who
Might
knows
have
who
been.
that is?
Give an example of a game that was better only after changing the
Okay,
rules.
I got something to say about this.
What? This is a good question.
Oh, but I got a weird answer to this question.
Oh, do you?
A game that is better only after changing the rules. If you change the rules, isn't it now a different game? Where's the line?
Well, I think in that case, the way I would look at
Like
it...
if I play, in his 5-card draw poker and 7-card stud poker, are those different games or are they different variations of the same game?
Well, I know Scott said off the air that he wanted to answer all questions directly, literally, mostly to make fun of people who wrote poor questions. But in the spirit of this question, I think the idea is more... What's a game that you bought, like Puerto Rico or Monopoly, and that by changing the rules of the game as it was bought, but playing the same game otherwise, it was better. I have a different kind of answer.
I have a cop-out answer.
I'm on Ray because we played the game wrong like 20 times, and we'd be like, oh, we were playing this part wrong. But we were always playing another rule wrong, and it took us a long time to actually play the game right. And every wrong way we played was really fun.
Yep.
And I think the game had a lot more staying power for us because we played it all these different ways.
Yeah. I'm going to cop out, kind of. And I'm going to say Blockus, because there's a game called Travel Blockus, which is a small Blockus board that allows you to play 2-player Blockus. We bought 4-player Blockus, the real Blockus. But... because we knew about Travel Blockus, we were able to use our big Blockus to play Travel Blockus.
Man, Blockus is such a good game.
Blockus is a good game. So we played...
It gives you all that feeling
We changed
of
the rules of the 4-player Blockus to play 2-player Blockus.
That's such a cop-out answer.
That is such a cop-out answer. Because basically, I really do think that if you change the rules of a game even a little bit, you are now effectively playing a different game. Even if it's only a slightly different game, or even if the game is still incredibly similar... I even think that playing a game like Puerto Rico where you don't change any rules really, but you play 3-player and then 4-player and then 5-player, I think those are 3 different games. They're not completely different games, but I think they're different games.
Oh, I got a really good answer here.
All right.
You ready for this?
All right.
Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, great answer.
Because there are parts of D&D that are good and parts of D&D that are bad. And I think that by incorporating other elements from other role-playing systems, or by perhaps ignoring certain stupid rules in D&D, you can still use the system to great effect. And we've talked about that at length, so I'm not going to go any further on that track.
All right. Who is your favorite game designer?
I like how game designer is capitalized.
Yep.
All right. Of all time, it's hard to say because that's like saying who's your favorite creator of movies or comics.
Yep.
Because I mean, what, video games, board games, role-playing games? Let's do them all.
All right.
Board games, I would have to go with Rainer Knizia.
Rainer Knizia has the most games.
Tigris
and,
and Euphrates,
Tigris
my
and
favorite
Euphrates.
game ever.
But and he's definitely up there. But I don't know. The Andrea Seyfarth is also the high quality. It's a tough call.
But I don't know. We can't really debate that because
No.
I don't want to just drop a whole bunch of names. And be like, but what about so and so? What about so and so? But role playing games, Luke Crane.
I like the Jared Sorensen, the Inspector's Lacuna guy.
Yeah. Well, the thing
Like
is,
as awesome as Burning Wheel is, those little tiny indie RPGs are just so up my alley. It's like, oh yeah.
I think both are equal in different ways.
Yeah.
Like the two together are more than the sum of their parts.
Mm-hmm. Video games.
This is really tricky because video games are very collaborative, and
Yeah, I mean, it's like I could say Miyamoto, but
or you could say Sid Meier.
I could say Sid Meier. I could say like Gunpei Yokoi.
Oh, Gunpei.
I could
Japan wronged you.
I could say, who's the SimCity guy? Will Wright? Right?
Yeah, Will Wright.
I don't like the Molly New guy so much.
No, I don't like him.
No.
All right, this is dragging out.
Gabe Newell, the Half-Life guy.
We're doing what we said we shouldn't do for board games. Let's just name all the game designers we know that we
there
like.
you go.
You know
I
what?
don't really have a favorite. I guess Miyamoto, or
I
whatever.
think more to there aren't game designers, especially video game designers,
Yeah,
by and large are not in the spotlight like other.
Carmack.
Yeah.
It's not like, because the problem is there's a bunch of big name game designers, but none of them really stand out above the rest. Like, aha, that one's the best one right there. Oh,
Because
yeah.
they all make very different games
They're a-
that don't compete with each other.
Yeah, they're a bunch of guys, and they all make awesome games. And
Like, look, FPSs, right? All right, John Romero, John Carmack. Name anyone else.
Gabe Newell.
Yeah, name anyone else.
The people who work for Gabe Newell.
Yeah. I just think in general, a lot of people don't know who make their games. And I remember when I started paying attention to who directed the movies or anime I liked, and it was a great way to find other things I might like. And I don't think many people look at that when they look at video games. And
Nope.
I could talk about Kojima.
Yeah. All right. Why do you think some good game designers publish crap games?
Money. What is your opinion of games with dice as the primary game mechanic?
We don't like it.
Except for Dice Land.
You might as well just flip a coin, and whoever calls it wins. End of story.
I mean, dice can be used well. They can be used.
But as the primary mechanic,
well, Dice Land, Liar's Dice.
that's about it.
But then again, I would argue that the primary mechanic of Liar's Dice is lying.
That's true.
All right, what's your opinion of games that do not use dice? They tend to be awesome.
They tend to be awesome. However, once you figure them out, unless they have some sort of randomness, you will eventually figure them out, and you won't need to play them anymore.
Yep.
Are CCGs dead? I don't think they're dead because
they're dead to me.
They're dead to me, and there's still a lot of people who play them, and they're not as popular as they used to be. And I don't think their popularity is going to increase. I think their popularity is going to remain the same.
However, you cannot underestimate the Pokemon hordes.
You cannot underestimate the Pokemon and the Magic. What is the best CCG?
I've played a bunch of them.
I have
Not
played
lot.
a bunch of them, and
I
none
can
of
say
them-
which ones are crappy. I mean, Magic was kind of the first one,
Yep.
and Magic wasn't that bad.
Nope.
I mean, Magic's problems were caused mostly by the collector mentality around the game.
Yet the Pokemon one is also not so bad.
The Pokemon
it's better
one's
than
fun.
Yu-Gi-Oh!
It's really fun. Yu-Gi-Oh is I think it was our friend Luke who explained how.
The can of Coke won the Yu-Gi-Oh tournament.
Yes, they had a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament and a 20 ounce of Coca-Cola. It might have been Diet. I don't remember. Basically, they said, all right, this Coke.
Because the gaming store has every good card. So the gaming store took all the best cards and made the best deck. And basically what the can of Coke did was the rules of it were it draws a card and plays a card every turn, and that's all it does. And it won. It won the whole tournament.
Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh was a crap game. The Harry Potter CCG was really awful. I played it a bunch of times.
Penny Arcade CCG, I bought it for the art, and it was terrible.
The Penny Arcade
So that
game.
I guess whatever that is, yeah, not good. So
I've got it. I'm holding it in my
CCG
hand.
might be the Pokemon one. Unless there's probably some others I haven't played that might be better, but I don't play them. I don't know. I don't care.
I think it's just that a collectible card game has a problem that no matter how good the game is, the collectible mentality will win out. And I think what we could do to make a game like this awesome is take all the ideas of a collectible game, but make it a drafting game instead, where you buy the set and your friend buys the set, and you make a deck from a common pool of cards, and then you play.
Yep. I like the, if you want to talk, if you count it as a card game, there's the one where you pop out the ships, there's Pirates of the Spanish
I've heard that's actually kind of fun.
I've heard that's actually okay. So that and maybe some of the Clicks games. I think the Hero Clicks is the best of the Clicks games. So that's not saying much. All right.
Well, what were the hardest rules or controls that you have ever had to overcome in a game?
Well, I've usually when the controls are difficult to overcome, I don't overcome them and I just don't play.
Well, nowadays I don't. When I was a kid, I would. I played Renegade, and I got real used to the fact that depending on which direction you're facing, you did different things.
Oh, I did not bother.
I would deal with that a lot. Renegade was real tough to deal with. So was freaking Double Dragon 3.
Hardest rules. Goa was hard to learn from the rule book, but it's actually not really that hard a game if someone teaches it to you.
I think part of that was that we tried to learn Goa in a very loud room.
I think the rule book is also shitty.
Yes, but in addition, it was a loud room, and there was a dog barking.
Yeah. Hardest rules, maybe Daimacher. Pretty complicated right there.
Actually, Daimacher wasn't that complicated.
All right.
Well, no, it was complicated, but it wasn't difficult complexity. It was just, like, you kind of powered through it, and it all just kind of worked.
Yeah.
Square tomatoes and all.
I don't know. It doesn't. I mean, I guess some of those really crazy war games are too difficult for me to overcome, but I just don't play them.
Oh, you want to know a game that I never was able to play correctly?
All right.
Battle System.
Ah.
Battle System was the mass combat set of rules official for, like, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Like 2nd edition style.
Uh-huh.
And let me tell you, that was one hell of a game. I'm talking terrain, like moving units by giving them orders without measuring, and then measuring to see where they get. So you had to eyeball a lot of and formation mattered. That game was so hard.
All right.
I could say that one of the hardest things I've ever had to overcome is trying to play games with other people who just don't listen when we teach them how to play a game.
All right.
Like, it's one thing if you screw up a game that we teach you, or because, some games are really hard, but sometimes people just keep screwing up and just don't actually try to learn how to play, and it's infuriating.
It's true. Okay. Favorite video game moments?
I think it was when I got the hammer for the first time in Zelda 2.
That was a good moment right there.
Or when I walked into the 9th dungeon in Zelda for the first time, and that music was different, and I got really scared.
Also a good moment. I think in my life, probably when I beat Mega Man 2 for the first... That was the first game I beat. Another good moment. That beginning of Half-Life 2, where you're running away from all these guys and you don't have any weapons yet.
Oh, in the apartment block?
Yeah, and you run through, and then, like, the Combine guys come up the stairs, and they got, like, the spark thing.
I gotta admit, that was hot, because I expected, Half-Life games in the past were, like... the game was dynamic, but it wasn't that dynamic and that hard hitting. And when I ran back, like, they're like, oh crap, run away. And I run back down the stairs and I see the guards like banging open the apartment and dragging some guy out. And then they look up and see me. I yelled a little bit in the real world.
Yeah, that's a good moment right there.
Actually, the first time I beat Doom 2, because that was an epic experience. I beat Doom 2.
Yeah, but the ending is so disappointing.
Yeah, but you know what? It didn't matter, because I beat that game. You know how hard that game was on Ultraviolent?
Mm-hmm.
God.
All right. Has there ever been for either of you a major epiphany related to video games in which you knew that your life would be significantly different after that experience? For example, this could be anything that signaled you a new, unexpected epoch of gaming or a change to your understanding of video games, or just interpreted however.
I think the biggest one for me was that I played, and I've mentioned this every now and then, I played The Realm, the first massively multiplayer online role-playing game, or Mamorpaga. And I played it for a long time. I got in on the beta. I played that game hardcore. I was super into it. I ground like you wouldn't believe. I had my guild. I had my millions of gold. I had my baldricks of various colors. And I really got into it. And I had a bunch of friends on there. And one day, there was a kind of a net split where the login server crashed. So you could not log into the game. But if you were already logged in, you could keep playing. And the game was getting kind of buggy because something else was going on. There's a memory leak, and bit by bit, like, people started dropping out. And out of the thousands of people in the game, it came down to there were like 30 or 40 people left, and it was kind of this, like, everyone was kind of banding together in the city, and we were like, oh man, this is so cool. And people were taking screenshots like, who's going to be the last one left? This is going to go down in gaming history. Like, oh man.
And no one remembers it.
Well, no, I'll get to that. And I remember I was sitting there, and I'm in there, and it got down to 14 people left. And I'm standing, like, holding out in this room, and I'm talking to, like, the cool kids in the front area of Leinster. You couldn't often hang out in that area because the room filled up and you couldn't get in. So I was talking to, like, Elemental and all those awesome people, you know, awesome in my playing MMOs days. And my dad comes over, you know, it's just me and my dad for the weekend. He's like, hey, you want to go out for dinner or something? And I was like, no, something important's happening in my video game. I can't leave. I got to sit here. And I sat there all night. And at like 4 a.m, there were like 10 of us left. And the login server came back up. And someone logged in. And someone else logged in. And then a bunch of people logged in. And then I realized, wow, I should have gone out to dinner with my dad. I've been wasting my life playing this stupid game, and I pretty much never played it again. And that is why World of Warcraft is crap.
So, for me, a major epiphany related to video games, maybe the first time I played Counter-Strike, and I was like, oh, that's because someone told me about Counter-Strike, and they were like, yeah, you die and you can't play again. I'm like, what? That's crap. And then I'm like, oh, wait, rounds are like 2 minutes. This is awesome. Oh, my God.
Man, I remember that the first time I played Counter-Strike, like, I'm walking. I got my gun. I'm like, all right, this is really slow, but I can deal with it. And then I just died. And I was like, what? That sucked. And I just didn't get it.
Yep. Has there ever been for either of you a similar epiphany related to board games or tabletop role-playing games?
Well, when I was at UberCon, the year before Scott went to his first UberCon, I saw some indie gamer guys, and they were hyping up their little system called Burning Wheel. And I was like, all right, I'll try that stupid thing. And, you know, I got nothing better to do. I'm waiting for the Settlers of Catan sanctioned tournament that I did very well in. Mm-hmm. And I walk over, and I play this combat demo, and it was not like anything I'd ever played before. And it was kind of cool, but at the same time, the guys seemed really intense, and I was kind of put off by that. I was like,
he is real intense.
I was like, all right, gamer guys, your system's not that great, because I didn't know about the rest of Burning Wheel. They just played the combat for me, and I was like, this is cool, but it's also really kind of difficult. All right, cool, whatever. Then we played Burning Wheel, The Inheritance with Luke Crane the following year.
Just playing the sword was definitely the RPG epiphany. Like, Well,
we sat down and he passes out characters. And I was the elf who's like father whatever. And Pete was the dwarf who's father whatever. And Scott was the filthy human who was just trying to steal the sword because humans are filthy.
You mean the awesome human.
And Luke's like, all right, I gotta go talk to someone. I'll be right back. By the time he came back, we were already arguing loudly in character. And then we stop when he walks in, and he says, no, continue. And at that moment, I was like, I think this system is what I want.
In terms of board games, I think the first time I played Settlers, I was like,
oh, man.
I was like, this is a new kind of game. Because up until then, right, I had played games like Monopoly, but I was tired of those because they were all just sort of random crap, you know. And then I was playing games like Risk and Axis and Allies, but I was tired of those because they just had so much shit.
Yep, and then we played Shogun before we played Settlers, and that game was just impossible for...
Yeah. All right, let's keep going here.
Well, I got one more.
All right.
Dance Dance Revolution.
Oh, good call.
Because I thought DDR was stupid.
Yeah, I thought it was stupid, and then I did it, and I learned my lesson.
But the story, well, maybe we'll tell that another time. But suffice to say, there was a moment when I was playing DDR one day, and I was like, this is awesome. And I went over to Scott, and I'm like, Scott, this game is awesome. And he didn't believe me. And I'm like,
I'd known about that game. I'd been avoiding it. I thought it was stupid. It looked stupid. Anyone who did it looked stupid. I wasn't going to have any of it.
And I was like, Scott, play one game with me, and like, I'll eat my words if you don't like it. He's like, fine, to shut you up.
Like, game over.
And then he kept playing, and history was made.
All right.
Has there ever been we just answered that.
Yep.
Besides Astro Boy, Omega Factor, what other anime-based games are good?
The question assumes that Astro Boy Omega Factor is good, and I think I've never played it, but
I've heard it's good.
I've heard it's good, and I'm confident that it is good because it's Astro Boy, it's for the GBA, and it's made by Treasure, the people who made Dynamite Headdy and Gunstar Heroes. So I'm pretty sure it's a good game, but I am not 100% sure of that, so I'm not going to perfectly agree without playing it. However, are there other anime-based games that are good?
Well, my easy answer is in Japan
Oh.
on the Wonder Swan, even though I don't know how good those games are, but
No.
I've always wanted to play the Utena game for the Sega Saturn.
Yeah, I don't think that's actually a good game, though.
Well, I think it's one of those like Japanese adventure. It has the rules of a dating game, but it's not a dating game. It's like the decisions you make and the people you talk to and what you say to them kind of affect this world, and it's kind of a choose your own adventure. And
I just remember the best anime game. Initial D Arcade, end of story.
oh yeah. Oh man.
Initial D Arcade is the best anime-based game. Every other anime-based game is crap.
You know what? Actually, if you like fighting games,
Yeah, the Naruto fighting games and like the
are really fun. Like they're pretty good
the
games.
Shonen Jump DS fighting games, they're okay. They're all okay. They're not like these amazing games, but they're good.
The Naruto game on the PSP is actually really fun.
Yeah, they're okay. But Initial D in the arcade, best anime game.
Goddamn, to this day.
Yep. Oh, Fist of the North Star arcade.
Also awesome.
Yes. All right, but not as good as Initial D.
All right.
How do you guys feel about overhyped games, i.e. Halo 3 XD?
All right, I don't think Halo 3 was really overhyped. I think the ads were the ads, and I think everyone who bought it knew exactly what to expect and got exactly what they wanted.
Yeah, an example of an
And the game wasn't bad.
Yeah, an example of an overhyped game would be something like Gun. I remember going to GameStop, whatever. There were these huge displays for Gun. There were ads for Gun everywhere. People were talking about Gun.
Every time you bought a game, they'd be like, you want to pre-order Gun? We're going to sell out. And I was like, if you're going to sell out, how come you keep trying to get me to pre-order it?
Yeah. So, Gun was just who's
Garbage.
Who cares about that game now? It was crap. It was just crappy GTA clone in the Wild West. Had nothing to it.
Except there weren't even any horses to steal. There was just nothing. That game was...
So, pretty much, if someone spends a lot of money on marketing dollars to try to sell a game, that's they can do that. That's fine. But if your game doesn't live up to the marketing dollars you spend, maybe you shouldn't have embarrassed yourself. I mean, I don't really care what you do. It's all fine by me. I don't buy crap games. But if you, I would think people wouldn't want to embarrass themselves.
All right, this is actually a good question. Why do you guys come off like you hate the idea of console FPS? Aside from the fact that a mouse is superior.
A mouse is superior.
Honestly, I mean, the problem is that the genre FPS, first-person shooter, is really broad, and
there are a lot. Yeah, I mean, you could go Wolfenstein 3D. Wolfenstein 3D is technically an FPS. You're in the first person and you shoot. But what's it is really a maze game and a game of touching all the walls to find all the secrets and getting all the treasure. There isn't a lot of. I mean, there is shooting but there's not really dodging. It's just kill the bad guys and manage your ammo, and it's.
And I guess it's more that
it's not like Quake.
Without the fine control that you can get from a mouse, the kind of FPS that I prefer is impossible to have. And a few people have argued against this, but there's the level of control with a mouse is just to the point that it's like I'm in the game looking around. The only thing better than that would be VR.
Or Wiimote's pretty good too.
Wiimote is really good, but in certain circumstances.
Yes. Wiimote is better than an analog stick, but it's still not as good as a mouse.
Plus, you know what? I love the ideal of console FPSs because games like Halo are introducing whole generations of people to FPSs and the FPS community, the FPS culture.
It's just not introducing them to the type of FPS that involves ludicrously fast action, requiring ludicrously perfect aim from the players to have any measure of skill.
That may be a dead genre.
It may be. But that's the kind of FPS that we kind of like, is the ones that require you to have incredible aim, require you to be incredibly precise movements and incredibly fast reflexes. And those kinds of games can't be played without a mouse and keyboard or some other new input device we have not yet invented. They cannot be played with analog sticks, where the fastest you can move is pushing the analog stick to the edge and then just waiting.
Plus, PC gaming's not for everyone, and the fact that games like Halo allow people who would otherwise never have a gaming PC to experience the community of an FPS is, I think, really great.
Yep. What is your views on game crossovers? I don't really know what you mean.
And that was an improper sentence.
Oh, this could be described as either cross promotions, i.e. Halo Game Fuel. I don't know what that is.
Oh, that's they marketed an energy drink, Halo something.
Oh, how's that any different from marketing anything with putting a cartoon like Mario cereal?
Or Pocky with Gundam on it.
Yeah, that's fine. Who cares? Or medium crossovers, a la Dot Hack with OAVs, TV shows, video games,
or
and
that
manga.
vampire thing.
Oh, Blood Plus?
Yeah.
Well, Blood the Last Vampire, and then Blood Plus, yeah. This crossover of something into multiple mediums idea where you take one property, and it's one thing to, like, where Voltron. There's Voltron, the anime, and then there's Voltron, the comic, but they're sort of separate. It's not like you have to do both. But Dot Hack, the idea of that is you have to play the video game, you have to watch the anime, and you have to get the manga to get the whole story because it pans across all these different mediums. And that's kind of cool.
I guess it's kind of like the same feelings I have about communism. The idea is great. I really would love to see someone do it well, but Dot Hack was a god-awful anime. And when I say Dot Hack, you might say, what do you mean? Hack Sign? Hack... All of them. And the video games were MMO simulators.
Yeah, it wasn't even an MMO. It was pretend MMO.
And the manga was crap. And just... It's one of those things where...
Is crap. It still exists.
Okay. Regardless. It's what I feel like that sort of thing could be done really well. And I think you could make kind of a really immersive experience by having this unified media. And I think unified media is going to be a push in gaming over the next decade, but not in the next 5 years.
Yep.
But that's just an out there guess.
All right. What import games have you played/owned?
All right. Semi-legitimately owned every DDR that was released in Japan for the PlayStation 1.
That's kind of true.
I got them from Red Octane, and I may or may not have copied them to CDRs and had a 6-pin mod chip.
Yep. Other than that, I never really buy or play import games so much. I see games like in Japan, like, oh man, those games are so cool, I want them. But most of those games are games that require me to read Japanese very fluently. For example, Earthbound 3 or Mother 1-2 for the GBA. And so I don't buy them. And they're also way more money than I'm willing to spend and way more effort than it's worth it for me. And
Yeah,
I already have more games in the US than I have time to play. So why am I going to spend more money to get Japanese games that are going to be hard to play?
I mean, I wanted to buy Extra Mix of DDR, but it was like $80 to import that from Japan.
Yep.
Or for $4, I could rent it from Red Octane and maybe copy it or something.
Yeah. Now, back in the college days, I used to play a lot of import games, such as Paradise, Card Captor Sakura Tetris, Magical Drop.
But we had friends who had all those games.
Those are mostly puzzle games, which didn't require reading, and rhythm games. And not so much the games and also Tokimeki Memorial, but with people helping us to figure out what it said.
Oh man, we should we used to play Tokimeki Memorial like tag team audience style.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, that is fun.
It is fun. But other than that, I mean, I'm not really... I guess there are some indie PC games, such as Cave Story and Tumiki Fighters and things like that I will play, which are, games made by like indie developers in other countries, but they're for the PC, so I can play them, and it's not really an import game technically. But that's about it. I mean, I always pay attention to see what games they're making, but I don't really bother to play them until they come out here.
Well, there's that Penny Arcade. It was Mario Sunshine comes out in a week. You can probably wait. And then the other side was Mario Sunshine comes out in a week. How are you going to wait?
Yep.
And there's a follow-up question from the same person, I guess. What's your highest score in Frogger?
I don't know.
A lot.
I played Frogger. I got pretty far.
I played Frogger a lot on the Intellivision too. Like, more than I should have.
All right. What about highest score in anything?
A billion.
A hajillion bajillion.
Have you guys ever modded a console? I soldered a 6-pin mod chip with stealth into a PS1. I bought that PS1 in order to mod it for the sole purpose of playing Dance Dance Revolution until Scott bought, I forget what game he bought, but he bought some shmup. That was
G-Darius?
G-Darius. That was the first game that was not a DDR game that was run in my PS1. It was also the first non-pirated game that ever ran in my PS1.
All right, what would be your perfect console?
A computer. A PC.
Something that is so incredibly small you can't see it, that allows me to download and play any game ever created on my TV with the perfect control interface for each and every game, and it's all free.
Virtual reality.
That too.
Okay. I'm not sure if LARP can count as gaming. LARP stands for live action role playing, by the way. But what are your thoughts on that? Have you ever LARPed? Should people try it? Unless you live in Rochester, New York, by all means.
Well, the thing with LARP, I mean, there's nothing wrong with LARP itself. I mean, the idea is that you're playing D&D-ish kind of game, only you're standing up and you're actually acting things out, and sometimes you get the boffa weapons going on or something like that.
LARPing's really fun. I've done it several times.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason it can't be done in a fun and good way. The problem is, I'd say a good part of LARPing, perhaps a majority of it, at least in this country, involves scary vampire people who want to have sex and drink blood, and they're freaky occult type people.
Well, let me put it this way.
And you don't want to associate
There
with
is
them.
the large subset of LARPers. That includes a lot of people. But there is a significant percentage of those people who only play the White Wolf-style vampire World of Darkness kind of games. And a large percentage of those people...
Isn't it called like the Camarilla or something?
Well, the cam is separate. Don't
you want to avoid that?
Don't get me started on the cam.
Yeah.
The real problem is that LARPing is awesome, but it has been my experience at every con I've ever been, with the possible exception of anime cons, which is a whole different ballgame in terms of LARPing, is that a lot of the people who are attracted to LARPing are really, really, really creepy and really way too into the LARPing, and the worst part is that they want to act it all out, but they take everything personally, and it's not just a game to them, and it matters more than their lives. And the sheer amount of drama
because
that came out of LARPs...
These are usually people, I guess I'm going to do the armchair psychology here, where they don't have a lot of self-confidence, they don't like themselves, then, you know, they're kind of not so very social, kind of crummy people.
But in the World of Darkness, they're a sexy vampire.
That's why they like comic books and anime and video games, because they can escape from the world where they don't like, where they're antisocial losers. So they LARP to put themselves in another character, and suddenly they're awesome. I'm super awesome robot pilot. I'm super awesome vampire. And then they get super into it, and it means a lot to them, and they're freaky. So LARPing itself is okay, just most of it is with freaky people, so avoid freaky people. Just do it with your cool friends.
So the real answer is, yes, by all means try it out, but if anyone in a LARP makes you feel uncomfortable, or you just feel like something's wrong, just don't play anymore, because it's not worth it.
Find some other people, or find your own friends or something, someone you know.
Yeah.
What are your favorite real-time strategy games, if you play these at all?
I don't like real-time strategy games.
Warcraft 1?
Yeah? Command and Conquer 1.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I played real-time strategy games when they were new. Warcraft 1, Warcraft 2, Command & Conquer Red Alert, those kind of games. And I kind of liked them, but all of them bothered me. Like, playing StarCraft is kind of fun. The problem with it is that I will always lose and I will always suck, because there isn't really a strategy. The game comes down to who knows the exact order to build things and who can click the fastest to build the things the fastest.
Well, luckily, a lot of newer RTSs don't have this problem to that degree, but I think the biggest thing holding RTSs back is that, one, it's very difficult to make an RTS that plays fast enough and is controllable in an intuitive and effective manner, and two...
Well, it does. You can. It could be... It's sort of like, you know, the Weapons Factory in a way, where it's very complex and blah, but some people, like Koreans, they learn how to do it.
Yeah,
and it's not my thing. I don't want to learn how to do it.
But the other thing that I think really holds RTSs back is that without really good AI, it's really hard to send units off or set up interesting strategies, because your soldiers just stand there and get run over by the tank.
Yeah, it's like you have to manage the units too much, it's like if you make the people manage the units too much, then it's just annoying and crappy, and it's like not strategy anymore. But if you make them manage the units too little, then it's just build a bunch of guys, select them all, click on the enemy base.
I think it's something that, I mean, there are good RTSs. There's probably a lot of pretty good RTSs. I think it's just that it's a genre of gaming that is nowhere near its potential and is still relatively primitive compared to what it could be. I had a lot of hope for Supreme Commander, and I haven't really played it much yet, but one thing I can say is that it disappeared from the radar, and hardly anyone talks about it anymore, and that really worries me.
Yep. What are your all-time favorite single-player games? Rim's
See-
not so big on the single player games. I guess I say Zelda 1, Mario 3, Mega Man 2.
Mostly NES
Half-Life 1,
and
Half-Life
SNES
2.
games.
Yeah, those kind of games.
I would have to say, of all time, just by going on
Bionic
amount
Commando.
I really like Bionic Commando, but I think of all time, it would have to be Civilization 2.
Civ 2's a good one.
I think Civ 2 gave me the most enjoyment total
Star
of all
Control
gaming.
2, Master of Orion 2.
Honestly, I really, really like the Quest for Glory series. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 5 is crap. Don't even bother with it. Pretend it doesn't exist.
All right. Why are the majority of console shooters in third person when compared to PC-centric shooters, which are usually in first person?
Because the games focus on entirely different kinds of gameplay.
Yep.
That's pretty much it. We've talked about it already.
What's your favorite type of grenade in a game?
So, in Quake 2 days, there was a mod called Weapons of Destruction, and it added a total of like 30 weapons to Quake 2.
Good God.
And it was like rocket launcher, fire rocket launcher, cluster rocket launcher, homing rocket launcher, all of them with homing, all of them without homing, million kinds of machine guns. And among all those were a million different kinds of grenades. And a grenade, you could throw it like a normal grenade. You could stick it to a wall and make a laser trap if you had some cells that did whatever the grenade did. Or there were a whole bunch of special grenades like the napalm grenade and the cluster grenade and the plasma grenade and the normal grenade. And one of those was the nuke.
Mm-hmm.
And the nuke was a nuke. And it killed like everyone in a very large radius and filled a three-dimensional space that was near it would kill a third to two-thirds of the people playing on a 24-person deathmatch server. It was awesome. And it did. I remember the first time I played, like, people generally avoided using it. A lot of servers wouldn't give you frags if you used the nuke because it just kind of wasn't like people would just save up cells till they had enough and throw a nuke and get a billion frags.
Mm-hmm.
So the nuke was just kind of there and people didn't use it. And I joined a server and I was like, they didn't disable the nuke. So I threw a nuke down a long cylinder and everyone else on the server but me died. And I was kicked less than 30 seconds later.
My favorite kind of grenade is I actually kind of like, and I'm not going to pick a specific one, but like little tiny 2D games where they have like funny little grenades, like Metal Slug, where you just go, doo, little grenades, or Smash TV, where it's like grenade, 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 grenade. I like it when it's like a little dude throwing little grenades. Contra Force, grenade, grenade, grenade. I like that kind of action. That's always fun.
I did really like the laser cutter in Weapons Factory.
All right.
All right, what is your favorite all-time first-person shooter weapon of all time? Plasma gun Doom 2.
Yeah, I really love that plasma gun.
Especially in Doom 2. I mean, the plasma gun's really cool in Quake 3, but in Doom 2, the plasma gun, because the game was effectively two-dimensional, it wasn't really a normal, it wasn't a plasma gun like in Quake 3. It was effectively a plasma wall. And I love that weapon so much.
Hey, I'm gonna put a tentative hold. Basically, the portal gun and the gravity gun are probably the winners, but it's too soon to say those.
Oh, the only reason I didn't say those is because they're kind of like the obvious.
Yeah, so
it's like, what's the best movie ever? Citizen Kane? All right, so really, what's the best movie ever other than Citizen Kane?
right, so those two, but I'm gonna say actually the plasma gun from Quake 3 because it's the same as the one from Doom 2, but it's like a better implementation of it. And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. I like the way it shoots.
Actually, how about the heavy machine gun in Natural Selection?
Nah,
It feels-
really not a fan so
It
much.
feels so much like I'm in the movie Alien, and
It
I'm
is.
just shooting that thing.
It is a good gun, but how about the Devour from the Onos in Natural Selection? All right. Turn the page.
Melee attack.
Your all-time favorite melee attack.
Now, they didn't say in a game, and this is a cop-out, but I'll have a real answer, but my tentative answer is the way the Big O punches things.
Yep.
Number one, nothing beats that. That is the best melee attack in the history of media.
No, best melee attack, Voltron Blazing Sword. Cut you
All
in
right,
half.
but in video games,
I think they're specifically going for the first-person video games.
I don't know. I'd have to go for video games all over.
All right.
Probably when Sephiroth killed Aerith.
Maybe. River City Ransom hit him with a lead pipe.
I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, a lot of games, like first-person shooters, do melee usually terribly.
Yeah, lightsaber to the face.
Actually, though, that lightsaber, that Star Wars,
Knight?
yeah, that was actually really fun for like a week.
Jedi Knight is pretty good for a little while.
So yeah, for that week, that was the best melee attack in an FPS.
Yep.
What is currently the best multiplayer first-person shooter? Team Fortress 2. Or
Counter-Strike. Natural Selection.
Tribes 2.
Tribes 2.
Tribes 2 in an unplayable state is still the best. Oh my god, that game was
Tribes
good.
2, Counter-Strike, Natural Selection.
I think overall it would have to be Natural Selection, or the Natural Selection source that doesn't exist yet.
Yep. I find console gaming to be crap. This is a question, by the way, not me. The only exceptions are Wii games to make good use of the controls. Is there a counter-argument apart from the obvious that games are now made for release on console first? What? Okay, guy, listen. A game is a game is a game. What is it? How is a game suddenly bad because it's on a different machine? I mean, it's just a console game versus PC gaming. The only real difference, aside from sitting at a desk or sitting in front of your TV, is that the game is on a different machine.
It's more locked in. There's often less customization, things like that. You can't just plug a weird peripheral in.
There are advantages and disadvantages to both. However, you can have a good game on any machine, in any environment. There's no... Why should console gaming be crap? There are probably good games. There are good games and bad games on the console, and good games and bad games on the PC, and good games and bad games on a DS. So why would you totally eliminate a whole category of games? That's like saying... I'm not
Movies
gonna
are crap.
Movies on DVD are crap. I'm only watching them in the theater.
Yeah. Granted, I've heard people say that before.
Yeah, those people are dumb.
All right. If you were trapped on a lost-like island, electrical power, network computers, TV screens, and basically anything we want, but no off-island communication, with the rest of the front row crew for a year. So not forever, but just for a year. Because forever, my answer is very different.
Yep.
And if you could only have one game with you during that period, what would it be? Now, if I'm trapped there forever, my answer is the game of boat. It comes with a boat. And gas for the boat. And I take the boat home.
Can we have a game of who don't die and let's have an orgy?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean,
I don't know.
Honestly, it depends on exactly how many people. If it was the whole...
It depends exactly on who and what and how long and what the island was like.
You know what? If it was the whole front row crew, it would have to be Burning Wheel.
Burning Wheel's good.
I think that would keep me going
How
for a
about
year.
a game of let's play every game in the world once and see who wins the most?
Or, you know what? In that case, a game like Go, because in that I'd have the time to sit down and learn that game in the way that I currently do not know it.
Good call.
Oh, this is a good question.
All right.
What are your thoughts on the Metal Gear Solid series? Does Hideo Kojima get commended for his deep political message? Or should that be left out of video games? All right, one, it's not a matter of that being left out of video games. I think video games are just as valid a medium for political or any sort of
Expression,
ideas
any sort of artistic expression.
as any other medium. No different from a movie or a novel or a comic or a spray-painted graffiti. I think the real problem is that Kojima is a madman and his political message is crazy.
Also, Metal Gear Solid, I'm going to come right out with it. I've only played like the very beginning of the first Metal Gear Solid, and I've watched like a few minutes of Metal Gear Solid 2 and a few minutes of Metal Gear Solid 3 at random points, and that's it. And I'm really not so interested in playing them so much.
It's
And
just
I don't know what political message you're talking about.
I don't like the FMVs are just really... They're melodramatic, and the political message is not particularly deep. And a lot of it's like, why do I wage war? What's the meaning of love and honor and duty? And meanwhile, I'm in a fight with a man named Revolver Ocelot.
Rob Roslett, that was cool. I've seen that part.
God damn.
All right.
But in terms of the Metal Gear Solid series, my favorite Metal Gear game is Metal Gear.
1.
And I really freaking I think that game was revolutionary in a lot of ways.
That was a really good game.
Like, I would look to
I still suck at it, but that's just because I didn't, bother to brute force it and figure it out.
I'm awesome at that game.
Yeah.
Because I played it a lot.
See, actually playing, I have the skill to play it. I just don't have the knowledge to play it.
Oh,
to know which trucks to get in and all that stuff.
Well, you're supposed to figure it out, and if you just try, you'll figure it out.
I know, it would take me a while.
Plus, the hardest part of the game was just not dying.
I know, right?
But
that I can handle. I just can't handle the where do I go.
But I'm going to warn you all, there is a Metal Gear 2 for the NES.
Don't play that.
That is not the game you were looking for.
Pretend it doesn't exist.
Really, seriously.
Angry Video Game Nerd, you hit that one up.
Oh, yes, he should.
Okay. Please describe your favorite RPG characters. Are you talking about like characters we made for an RPG, or are you talking about RPG characters like a video game we played that was an RPG?
Well, let's do that one first because that's less scary, the latter.
All right.
I really liked Celeste from Final Fantasy VI. And my reason is, and I'm not going to super spoil Final Fantasy VI, but seriously, statute of limitations, guys.
Yep.
In Final Fantasy VI, you begin the game, like you play from the perspective of a bunch of different characters. But the main character is this girl named Terra, and she's an Esper.
Uh-huh.
That's an inside joke.
Yep.
But anyway, it's also a spoiler, but whatever, I don't care. So you play from her, like her perspective, and she's kind of, you know, the reluctant hero. She is the plot device. She's kind of the MacGuffin. She's the thing that holds the whole story together. And you follow her path, and along the way, you meet all these people who are trying to do good or evil or whatever, but they're all engaging characters, and they all work together. And one of the people you meet is Celeste, who is a general in kind of the bad guy's side, but, you know, it's all ambiguous. And
See, I don't actually know the names of the people in a lot of these Final Fantasy games because I always change them.
you know who Celeste is, right?
The yellow hair magic girl.
Yes, and you know
Okay.
who Terra is, right?
The girl at the beginning.
Okay. And like you meet all these people and they all have really good motivation and there's this really, I think, a really good story
Who's
there.
the guy with the auto crossbow?
That was Edgar.
I always name him Arthur.
Uh-huh. So you go through all this and the game is going like a normal RPG. Like she's the main character and blah, blah, blah. And like she's holding everything together and the plot's going forward. And then basically the apocalypse happens. And the whole time you've played from the perspective of or around this character. And then you wake up in the ruined world and you're not that character. You're Celeste, who was, an important character, but effectively until that point, a side character. And she was a person who had lost all faith in the world and all faith in humanity and all faith in herself. And the story of the game ends up where, as this broken character, you are the one who has to go around and gather up all the people who have decided that it's not worth it to continue in their quest. And you went from the person who had no motivation, who was being dragged along in this plot to save the world, whatever, to being the only person in the entire world strong enough to gather these people together and do what needs to be done. And you even have to convince the main character to snap out of her bullshit and come along.
All right, it's getting a little long.
Yeah, but I think that she is one of the best characters in any video game RPG ever.
I like Shadow.
Shadow was shallow crap. Unless you got all the dreams. And even then, half of Shadow's dialogue was actually Realm's dialogue because they coded the game shittily.
I like Gato. I
think Scott and I enjoy RPGs on different levels.
I like the your dad in Final Fantasy Legend 3.
Should I spoil that?
It's up to you.
So, in Final Fantasy Legend 3, you get an airship, but it turns out that your dad is the airship.
And not only is your dad the airship, he's basically a B-2 bomber with an inn inside.
Final
of it.
Fantasy Legend 2.
An inn and a shop. Not only an inn and a shop, an inn and the best shop in the game inside your dad.
Final Fantasy Legend 2 is a much better game.
No, it's not.
The reason being, there is a scene in Final Fantasy Legend 2 that comes kind of out of nowhere. And, you know, the characters all have leitmotifs. And, like, the main, like, your party have, like, the hero theme that plays when you're doing your hero shit. And near the end of the game, like 2/3 of the way through, you come across a door and you eavesdrop through it. And, like, the three bad guys are on the other side of the door. And they're talking to each other. And they're revealing the plot. And there's, like, the super artifact right there. And then your hero music starts playing. And then they go, "What's that music?" "I don't know, but it's freaking me out. Let's get the hell out of here." And then they run away. And then you bust through the door and they took the artifact with them. You're like, damn it.
Yep.
Now, the other way to answer this question is a topic that is, we have to broach this carefully because nothing in the world is more interesting to you than your RPG characters. And nothing in the world is less interesting to you than anyone else's RPG characters.
Yep.
And any conversation that begins with, "So I'm playing a paladin," is not going to end well.
Or, "Hey, what do you play as?" Or, "Hey, I got this character I just made called Don't go there. So keep it real short. That way we can just answer this question and move on.
Yeah, you want to go first? You ever played a memorable character? I would go with the vampire guy from that Requiem campaign.
I like the skeleton, kinda.
Scott played a skeleton monk, and actually Scott roleplayed that character pretty well, partly because the character was mute.
It was a good character.
I liked him.
I like the skeleton monk.
Yeah, I think the vampire was a better character because you basically played you if you were an evil prick vampire, and it ended up ending always in hilarity.
Yeah.
This one time is the only story I'm gonna tell.
No, don't. You've been dragging this out.
Well, we're gonna end on this question probably.
Oh.
It's been an hour.
Oh god.
I guess we could answer one more.
All right.
You know what? No, yeah, we'll answer one more.
Okay.
Two more.
Okay.
Two more because I just looked and the next question's dumb and the question after that is good.
Okay.
But, all right, I won't tell that story, but to spare the details, I played one character for many, many years through high school and then even in college a bit, and I really like this character, and I'm going to leave it at that.
Okay.
But I played him a lot, and he's near and
You
dear
gonna say
to
what
me.
character it is?
Not really. His
It
name is...
It was a frou-frou elf. End of story.
Pretty much.
Okay. Why is the status of not being able to cast spells known as silence? Well, let's see. I'm going to cast a spell. Mecha leka hi, mecha heiny ho.
So I believe you should have said Antorbach Redgormor Ulia.
That's okay too. But okay, so now I'm silent. I can't cast the spell because I can't fucking say the spell.
Oh shit! And that's why.
Yeah, but actually in D&D that only stops you from casting spells that have verbal components. If it's only a somatic component, then you can still. Wow, that's nerdy.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, this is the last question, but don't worry. We have enough questions to do a whole nother hour, and we're gonna do it. And you'll hear that at some point in the future.
All right.
The last question for tonight. Now that the virtual consoles exist, do you think ROMs of old games are still justified? Now, one, ROMs were barely justified in the first place. Most of the time, when someone justifies, for whatever BS reason, pirating something, don't pretend. Just say you're stealing it and then steal it. Don't act like it's okay because it's overpriced, or it's okay because I'd have to track it down in a store. No, that's bullshit. You're pirating. Just deal with it.
Yeah. I think that, morally speaking, from my viewpoint, if there's a game and there's no way to get that game reasonably, for example, there's like one copy of it in the world, or it's totally out of print and no one will give up their copy, or it's incredibly hard to find and it's not made anymore and the company that made it is out of business and whatever, then getting a ROM of that game I think is okay for the sake of history and preserving art and whatever. Also, if you own a game, let's say I bought a game for the NES, right? But now my NES is broken and I haven't played the game in a bunch of years. Why? You really shouldn't really have to pay to play it again in the virtual console. You having a ROM of that and play it on your computer, I really don't see a moral problem with that. If you own the cartridge, sure, why not?
Now, morals aside, I think the main justification I have for emulating is mostly that emulation is really, really convenient.
It is really convenient.
And also, a lot of games aren't on the virtual console yet. And I guess I've noticed that all the games that are like games that are important to us, we've bought on the virtual console.
Yeah, despite all my complaining about how overpriced it is, and I still think it's overpriced. But when they put like freaking,
Super Mario 2.
They put Super Metroid on there, I gotta click buy. There's just I can't stop myself. I need it and I play it, and it's mostly because even with all the awesome features you get with an emulator, right? What you still don't get is the flawless control. You have to use some sort of USB gamepad. I mean, even if using an Xbox controller, which I guess is the best you can do, it's still not the greatest. Being able to play an NES game with the Wiimote turned sideways with perfect control, that's sort of worth the money that I don't get on the emulator. But then again, the emulator gives you other things like
save states.
Save states, yeah.
Because I love Castlevania 2, but I was not about to beat Castlevania 2 legitimately again. So I use save states to only have to get through the really freaking impossible parts once or twice.
Yep. So there are some cases where I morally think there is a case to be made where it's okay to have ROMs and distribute, and other cases where it's like even okay to distribute them and share them. But legally, you know what the law is. And
yeah, don't kid yourself.
Yeah, the virtual console does sort of eliminate it somewhat because it used to be like, basically all it did was decrease the list of games that I thought it was morally okay to get ROMs of. That's what it's done. Like I would have said, you want Metal Marines for SNES, ROM is okay. Now, not okay anymore.
Speaking of which, if you've never played Metal Marines for the SNES, buy it on the Virtual Console. That game is the kind of game that needs to be remade with modern technology in a powerful, fierce way.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, the game is not perfect. It has many problems, but the core fundamental of that game is awesome, and it's just the implementation on the SNES that breaks down after a few levels. But just to see what the core of that game is and why it's so awesome is worth playing.
Definitely. It's worth the money just to understand what kind of game that is.
Yep.
All right, we've gone on for about an hour, but like I said, sometime in the future, you're going to hear the other half of this where we answer a whole bunch of other questions about things like Kill Puppies for Satan, sad moments in video gaming, XCOM UFO defense, and Pokemans.
Oh, Pokemans.
Oh, worst game you've ever paid for is a good question, but I'm not going to
I got a couple of those.
But I'm not going to answer that right now.
Oh, we should have just do the second half.
There's some really good questions. Oh, God.
We put all the good questions in the other episode. Sucks to be you.
Yeah. Oh, well, you'll hear them at some point in the next couple years.
All right.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Odeo. Just click the link that says Send Me an Odeo on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.